allow me to say it's an absolute pleasure to be on this conversation with you, Shatha. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate
Wonderful.
it.
Wonderful. Just so everybody who is watching this video gets an understanding, just tell us a little bit about what you do, Shatha.
Okay, so I'm currently the country MD of Protiviti in Oman. We're obviously in the business of business consulting. We cover different solutions ranging from finance optimization to risk management to compliance, audit, HR consulting, you name it. It's everything under the umbrella of business advisory. We do it. And obviously we are well positioned against the big four, the likes of PwC, Deloitte, because sometimes people ask us, what exactly do you do and how are you different from the big four? So that's what we do, except we don't get involved in attestation and taxation, which is great for me because that helps me expand on my creativity side. When you do attestation and tax work, there's no creativity. So it's difficult to sell. It's either, there's nothing to sell really. It's either they want you to work with you or not. It's a bit different. So yeah.
Excellent. And that's great to hear. In fact, I'm so happy you are the country leader, which means it's a position of seniority, position of responsibility. Tell us about what changes you had to make in your mindset to get to where you are, Shatha.
So I think I've been fortunate to be in this field for a good 20 plus years. I'm not going to say exactly how long, but it's been over 20 years. And I think there's been a very beautiful natural evolution in my skill sets, in my competencies, and I think also in my natural traits, if I may add. And obviously I started with loving what I do as a consultant. And I think when you love what you do, you evolve into somebody who can sell the solution, who can listen to the problems, who can come up with recommendations, who can make the client feel that we are listening to you, we're hearing your pain, and we can shape something to help take away that pain. It makes you a good diagnostic reviewer kind of a person, that let's listen to you, let's hear what the problems are, and then let's come up with a solution. And of course, that doesn't come naturally unless you have a lot of work experience in that space.
Very nice. Very nice. Which also means that, you started off as a consultant, which means more diagnostic skills. Now you're a leader, which means it's P&L responsibility, right?
100%.
Where does sales or business development fit in all of this, Shatha?
It's what I do full time now. People say, hey, you're the MD. And I'm like, no, I'm the saleswoman. I am the key salesperson in this organization at my level. So the sales responsibility just skyrockets.
Yeah. Tell me something, Shatha. Sales has got a bad reputation. People don't say sales, they use euphemisms, right? To say, I'm in business development, consulting, etc. Right, but here I see you proudly saying, I sell, right? And what made you make good friends with selling?
See, selling, I won't lie, it was not a smooth process. It wasn't easy. I was away. I've been bouncing from one country to another. I think one thing that makes sales easy is when you have those relationships, that you nurture them over the years and so on. I can say now that after being here for 12 years, I invested a lot of time in building relationships. I invested a lot of time listening to people. I invested a lot of time socializing with people. I invested a lot of time not selling, but listening. I think my sales strategy was be a good listener. Listen, just keep listening. And the more you listen, the more information you get. The more information you get, the better positioned you are to shape a solution, Yeah.
Very nice. So, just stay quiet, just listen, and that's what it is. Tell me a little bit about how you build good quality relationships, because that's the foundation, right? What's been your idea about a good, strong client relationship, Shatha?
See, there is relationships that happen before sales, and then there is relationships that happen during sales and after sales. And I think it's a whole cycle, right? Before sales, people need to know who you are as a person. They need to know, what do you have to offer on the table? Are you genuine? Are you patient? Are you genuinely listening to sell, or are you listening to solve a problem? You know? And of course, during the sales, and I think I'm proud to say this actually, because a lot of people struggle with the sales period as far as dealing with relationships. And for me, I have a very different strategy. One is I don't do negotiations. I'm not here to play numbers. So I have a number on board. I'm very transparent about what this number looks like, what is it going to serve, and so on. So, you know, when people come in and call me and they say, hey, you know, can you come in and give us a 50% discount? I said, I'm selling a service. I'm selling my time. I'm selling a solution to you. And I can see that there is a different trend in sales where people are like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's give you 40, 30. I'm like, and I remember telling this to one client, and actually it was a enlightening moment for me, where I think I was so aggravated by a ridiculous discount request. And they basically said, the job is yours if you give us 50%. So I told the client, I just have one question for you. If I give you the 50%, there's two parts to a problem. Either I ripped you off by 50%, because I will obviously not do a job at a loss. Okay. And in the world of consulting, we don't make 50% margin. Okay. We're lucky if we make 10 to 20%. Number two, if I do that because I'm desperate and I want to get my foot in the door, because sometimes consultants do that. They're like, listen, it's worth the investment. Let's get our foot in the door and then we can expand that relationship. Then we're talking about unethical pricing, that you're making me deliver something and you're not compensating me for that work.
Right.
So how do you feel about that? And believe it or not, to my surprise, we got awarded without negotiations. And so even my team was shocked, because they said, Shatha, did you just blow it? You know, like you just said no on the table. And you basically said it's an unethical pricing. I said, well, I think part of my job is to also educate the other side.
Very nice.
What sales is. And I'm sure, you know, I'm sure they'll take this with them when they go to next negotiations. If somebody offers 50%, I think they'll take a step back instead of getting excited and saying, let's work with them because they gave us a 50%. You know?
Very nice. Very nice. And I'm thinking about it differently, Shatha. The reason the customer gave you the business is because they found value in what you're delivering.
100%. And I think also, you know, in sales, and I mean, I've been in a situation where a salesperson comes to me, and actually very often those who say, listen, this is my final price, you can take it or leave it. It makes me think twice that, wait a minute, they seem to be fairly confident. They're not willing to compromise on the price. And, you know, maybe this is the market price. And I always tell clients, go out there in the market, meet the people. So, you know, sales is not just what's a number on a piece of paper, meet the people. And I said, you can talk to others if you don't like what we've technically proposed and you don't like the team that you met. But then it's like, no, we don't want to change anything. Let's proceed.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Tell me, I mean, I think what would be very useful for other leaders in sales who are watching this, Shatha, is what have you learned about value creation? Because that's the foundation, right? If we don't create value, then this price conversation comes in. If there is 100%. Enough value, then nobody's talking price anyways. I mean, tell us one or two things about what you have learned about value creation, Shatha.
See, one thing is we always try to have these conversations with clients before pitching in for anything. So even if a client says, I want you to come in, and I remember, I'll give you a reverse story to address the value creation. I had one of my team members in my previous job, and they came up to me and said, listen, Shatha, I got you a lead, go meet with the client and you can sell the job. It's done. It's a done deal. And I said, what is it that they want? And he said, this is what they want. I said, how did you sell it? He said, I just told them what we do. So they'll buy it from you. I said, but do you know if it's a problem that they have? And he says, it doesn't matter. They want to buy it. So I said, I find this a bit weird. So I said, anyways, let me go talk to the client. And when I spoke to the client, it was not something that the client needed. So he heard about that call and he's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to bring business to you and you just shut that door. I said, listen, we don't open doors by just closing one deal. And it's not something that they need. Yes, you'll win a deal today, maybe $50,000, close it, everybody's happy, but it's not creating any value for the client and it's not what they need. But that conversation that I had with them, I told them, listen, this is not what you need. What you need to look at is XYZ. converted into a $300,000 deal. And that $300,000 was made for us. This is the best part. The client said, I want you to come in and do the job. So I think that was a big lesson for others, thinking and reflecting that, I'm not going to sell you something you don't need. My whole point of my job is to create value. It doesn't matter whether it's $5,000 or 5 million. I need you to remember me after, the sales and after the delivery and after the payment, even after the celebration. I want to hear a good story after it's been implemented. Say that the reason why we are here today is because of Protiviti, because of the conversations we had with them.
Beautiful. Very nice, Shatha. Very nice. Now, does it matter that you're a woman, Shatha?
Does it matter? See, men have been in this field for the longest time, and it's still dominated by men. So there's no ifs or buts about that. But, there's been enough studies that suggest that women excel at B2B. And I think men, they have a very different approach. And I think when you combine men and women in the workplace, you can get the best of two. But I think we all have to learn something from each other, to be fair. I've learned a lot from my male colleagues, and I hope they learned something from me. Because there aren't many women at my level, to be honest with you.
Right.
So, but I know that the men appreciate what I do, but I think in their perspective, it's always taking much longer with a woman. She spends way too much time. So I'm sure today, if we see the metrics, a woman is definitely spending at least 3 times more. This is not a statistic, but I know my time, right? So I would probably spend 3 times more building that relationship versus the man. The man will go in and he will lose patience after the first meeting, second meeting, third meeting. I will continue to meet even for a year. And some people will say, listen, and I actually did one study with one client, and they said, Shatha, you're wasting time. It's been 3 years. You're meeting this client. Nothing is happening. I said, I know, but this is part of my job. And actually, I calculated the hours. And I actually did this recently because I was trying to explain something to my team. I spent about 150 hours. 150, how much is that? When you look at the sales that happened after those 3 years, it came to 4 million.
Wow.
$4 million. For $150 hours of my time.
Wow.
So of course, as an MD, they'll say, if you're spending 150 hours, you're not going anywhere. But those people remembered me. The board level remembered me, the C executive, the middle management. I met with everybody. It's a large organization. But every time we close the deal, we close 3 or 4 deals, $4 million is a big deal for us.
Exactly.
And so nowadays, they just pick up the phone and say, listen, if I need something, I know who to talk to. They'll come to me, even if I don't have the answer. I'm like, let me check with my colleagues. They're like, okay, you check and let us know. We don't need to talk to anyone, Whereas I think men are definitely faster at turning, but I don't know if they're very good or as good as women in nurturing those relationships.
That's a beautiful word, nurturing, right? That's the key. Very nice.
Yeah, I think we are special in that sense. There is a compassion that we show. That men are great. Honestly, I'm not here to ditch men in any way, but I think we do invest a lot of time. We do invest a lot more time. And of course, if people look at just the general performance metrics, they'll say, Shatha, it took you more time to convert that opportunity. But I'm saying, I'm not only converting an opportunity, I am creating a sustainable relationship.
Very nice. Very nice. That's beautiful to hear, Shatha. Right? In a time where people are looking at instant gratification, you're looking at delayed gratification. Keep investing, it will come back.
It is an investment. Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, let's talk a little bit about differentiation, Shatha. Right? Some wise man told me that if you are not different, you deserve to be commoditized.
Yes.
Correct. And there is competition everywhere, right? How does Shatha work on her differentiation?
I don't know if I should be sharing my secrets, but okay. See, I know one of the things, and this is client feedback, right? So I don't know, but for me, my work tempo is extremely high. Clients come before anything. Unfortunately, sometimes they come before my health, which I don't advice. But, I could be in a hospital just getting out of a surgery, and I'll take that call if I have to. the extent of. But I think now that with good relationships, they take care of me, to be fair with you. They're like, when you have time, give us a call. When you have time, come back to us. But of course, I'm dealing with a lot of new relationships every day. And one thing that we definitely differentiate is, I always tell everyone, please be extremely responsive. So we have very simple rules. If a client reaches out to us, if it's an email, you need to respond within 4 hours maximum.
Wow.
I don't care what happens during the day, within 4 hours. If they contact us after 5 p.m., you can still reply back that evening. You can at least acknowledge. We have to acknowledge. You don't have to take action. Acknowledge, received your email, and you'll hear back from us, tomorrow or the day after. Actually, I don't have patience. It's never more than 24 hours notice. The other thing is, if a client says, I need to urgently meet you, I'm ready to meet them right away. I will reorganize my meetings, my schedule, prioritize and all. But the feedback I have received from some of the clients, they said, whenever we try to call a partner or an MD, it takes them at least a week to 10 days to give us a time, And I think also it's a huge blessing with the pandemic. Now they're comfortable with, I'm like, listen, I can't be at 2 different locations within this period of time. Can we do a Teams meeting? And then I'll meet you again. And they're like, okay, let's do that. So, so I could even have a Teams meeting while I'm driving, I've been, it's benefited me in many ways. So I'm like, just give me a call. As soon as I'm done with that meeting, I'm on the road, I can head out and have a conversation with you. But I think when you talk about differentiation, we are very highly responsive. I will not forgive anyone if a client is sending us a reminder. I'll just tell you that much. I do not want any client to send us a reminder for anything. The client needs to know that we're here, we heard you, we're coming back to you, and we honor. And to be honest with you, Venkat, I learned this from our former chairman, who passed away, unfortunately, a very young, thriving, wonderful man. And I used to tell this to everyone, there's no excuse in our organization when the chairman honors his word. When he tells me, thanks for sending me this contract, I will come back to you at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm not kidding. 9:55 a.m., he's back. And he's never, ever failed. He's never, as a chairman. So I'm like, if a chairman sets that communication standard, there's no excuse for anyone to fall short.
Wow. So the customer feels respected. The customer feels, oh, here is somebody who's invested in me, right?
100%, 100%.
Excellent. Now tell me something, Shatha. I mean, you're in a senior position now, the country managing director. That means in your journey, you must have faced some biases.
Yes.
What kinds of biases did Shatha have to face?
There's lots of biases. Are we talking internally or externally?
Both.
Okay. I'll start. Internally, you also have to invest in your relationships. And I tell this to every woman, that men are actually very simple creatures. Especially in a dominated workplace. They're actually very simple. They're not difficult to please. They're very focused on numbers. They're very focused on just get it done. They don't want to beat around the bush. They don't want too much information. Either you can do it, you can't do it. There's a lot of things. But men will take a woman on his shoulders and even on top of his head the minute he thinks she adds value to the business. We don't want to beat around the bush. We don't want to see what else you can offer. All the softer, things that are not tangible doesn't excite them as much as tangible results. So if you say, hey, I got my foot in the door, I managed to get a meeting with this board member who we've been trying to meet, all the men will be very supportive, But if you tell a story and say, listen, there's some challenges, and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear this, Externally, of course, there was a lot of bias. First of all, for me, I guess I looked too young. I was 33 when I became an MD, or 32. So, and I think with my looks, I did not look as old as I should. In our part of the world, if you're an MD, you're a partner, you need to look very senior. And so that I felt I was not necessarily getting the respect that I was hoping to get. But I said, you know what, this is also my job now to earn that respect. And, present what is inside my head, instead of saying that, instead of going in with my job title, I just need to show up with my brains and present to the client what I have to offer. And I could say that, it's been a pleasure, because many did not expect, I don't know, I think part of the plus point was me coming from the US. It helped a lot. So when they know that I worked in the US, suddenly there's a huge shift. And I don't like doing that, but I felt like I had to do that. So they were like, where were you before Protiviti? And I was like, oh, I was with PwC in the US. Then you can see people are taking a few steps back and saying, okay, let's listen to what she has to say. So for me, I focused a lot on my technical capabilities to earn that trust and that bias that, oh, she's a woman, she can't be technical. Oh, she's a woman, she can't be in the space of IT. She won't understand internal audit, or she won't understand finance. It's too technical for her, So when I had those conversations, actually, I think in my first 2-3 years, that's all I was doing, just building relationships. I was not focused on anything else but building relationships. And they said, oh, we don't know who you are anymore, because you come in one day to discuss internal audit, the next day corporate governance, the next day finance optimization. And I said, it's because I've done all this work. It's not, I'm not the expert, the deep rooted expert, but I am a generalist, and I know what I'm talking about, and I know who to bring on board to serve your problems.
Very nice. And I think, there's a beautiful book which has come out called Range, right? How generalists survive in a specialist world.
Yeah.
So it's all about knowing everything, the peripheral intelligence, right? Wonderful. That's very nice to hear, Shatha. Very nice to hear. And the fact is, it's your competence as well as the connection that actually helped you to thrive as well. Very nice.
Yeah, I think one important thing is ego. I don't have ego. We all have some ego, and we always say that some ego is healthy to drive us, but I don't let my ego overtake my sensibilities. Sometimes I can tell you a little incident that happened not long ago. So we were having a conversation. It sounded like the person that we were selling the solution to, he's an elderly man. He was a bit stubborn. I don't think what he was saying was wrong, but it was a bit annoying maybe. And so it was me dealing with him and another gentleman. The other gentleman just started getting irritated, and he's my colleague, but he was really getting irritated. And I was trying to tell him on the side note, I was just like, just let it go. Just let it go. There's no need. He says, no, he's asking for unreasonable. And yes, it sounds unreasonable if you don't handle the client the right way. And I knew it was all coming from a place of ego. Suddenly the two guys, their egos were, starting to battle each other. They were clashing. And I just jumped in and I said, listen, and I called the client by his name. And I said, sir, I just want to let you know that if it takes one workshop, or it takes one workshop, or 10 or 20, we'll do it. I said, but if it takes 10 or 20 workshops to satisfy you, then we're not the right people. And so he said, so what are you suggesting? I said, I'm not suggesting anything, but I believe 1 or 2 workshops and we'll be done. We will solve your problems. And the whole demeanor of the gentleman changed. He started laughing and he said, I love your confidence. That's all he said. I love your confidence. And I said, I am confident because, we're obviously pitching for something that we're very comfortable to do. And I think we're also good at influencing all your team to understand what are we trying to solve here. If it takes me 10 workshops to do that, there's either a problem on my side or there's a problem on your side. And I don't think we have problems. And he completely changed. It was just that one incident of making him feel like the most important man in the room. And he may not necessarily be the most important man in the room. But I told my colleague said, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this person. I said, leave him to me. He said, this is high risk, and all that. And I said, don't worry about it. I will handle him.
But tell me something, Shatha. This is a wonderful anecdote that you're telling me. How did you build that level of emotional maturity?
I think we as women, we're gifted. I've not been through any course or anything, but I've done a lot of reading. And I don't think the reading necessarily, I didn't read to develop a skill set as much as to reflect and see, okay, this is an interesting point. And I would say half the time I've read stuff and I said, oh, I do this all the time. So this feels good. It's reassuring. And I think maybe being an empath, I am an empath and I'm an introvert. And I think I'm a strong observer. And I think when you can take the time to have empathy and observe and be a good listener, your emotional intelligence, obviously, you can exercise those muscles much better than someone who doesn't have those characteristics.
Beautiful. Now, Shatha is very successful, but the world is just not Shatha. She has to create multiple Shathas. What have you learned about creating more high performers in your team, Shatha?
What have I learned or what have I been doing? See, for me, I make sure that I remember doing some kind of a psychological assessment, and I did it with my entire team. And one aspect of it was leadership, being noticed by others. What are our needs, and what do we do? What are our social aspects? How do we handle optimism at the office and all? And anyways, the results were very interesting because you can't manipulate them. And I tried to help everyone feel comfortable. I said, are we ready to share our results? And everybody kept their hands down and they didn't feel good about what they saw. And obviously I could understand, because when I saw my results, my leadership was 4 out of 10. But I know why it's 4 out of 10. There's multiple reasons for that. So I told the occupational psychologist, she's a doctor, I told her, you know what, put my results up, because my need to be noticed was a 0 and my leadership is 4. Okay, but my social and my optimism was a 10.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So I said, I understand the story. This wouldn't have been the same 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but in my current position, and I tried to explain to the team, I don't believe I can be the only leader. If I feel the need to be a leader at 10, what is my team doing? I'm a team player like all of you. I said, I have my people who bring me information. I have my people who are telling me what's going on in the projects that they're working on. I have people who are, building relationships with middle management, with junior management, passing on messages, what's happening, what are the discussions on the corridor, what are clients talking about, what are their pain areas. I mean, there's so many things in our job. And my need to be noticed is a 0 because I feel noticed. I'm like, I'm either writing, business articles, I'm at events. I don't need to be noticed any more than I am already. So now, when those results were seen and my social skills, that is a 10, not because I am a social person, but it showed that I'm making an effort, a 10 effort in socializing. But my need to belong is very low. So I don't need to belong to a group. I don't need to belong to an individual, but I make a very high effort to be a social person. So they also understood. I told them, listen, I don't have that need. I need to be, close to my team, but I don't need that in the space of my workplace, as long as I'm delivering what is needed. But I make an effort of a 10. My optimism is a level of 10. And usually with core composure and, how we are composed at work, and even the emotional aspects or emotional restraint are typically low amongst all people, not just within my team. I noticed that this is actually across different sectors, across different levels. The ratings of optimism, emotional restraint, and composure are all low. But, they cover it, by just pretending to be okay on the outside. And then as you have those coaching discussions with them, or the discussion of those reports, you start to see that, yeah, I'm not so happy. I've been a deputy for so long, or I've been doing this and that. But anyways, after I shared those results, the whole team's mindset changed. Everybody said, you know what, let's talk about mine. Let's talk about mine, even those who had leadership skills that I saw in them, they used to tell me, no, I'm not a leader. I said, listen, I was with you in the meetings. The first time I see you talk to the client, you're fantastic. And it was amazing that the report showed that about him, but he was still in denial. So after, a lot of discussions with him, I realized it was his boss who was overshadowing him, So it's a very interesting aspect. But, back to your question, this is, I have been extremely transparent with my team. I take even the trainees to board meetings, to client meetings. This is not something very common that happens, but I said, when are they going to learn? when are they going to build their confidence? So I take my trainees, I'm like going to meet the CEO. I'm like, come along with me. There's no reason, unless the CEO has a very confidential discussion that wants to talk to me alone. And I can see that my clients have a lot of respect for that. They're saying, she takes care of her people. She's bringing these young people into these board meetings, into, strategic discussions. Why are they bringing? I tell them, please, my only reason for bringing this person here is I want them to learn how to listen, to see how great our CEOs in the country are, to take minutes. This person doesn't have to talk or do anything else, So I can see also my team has built a lot of confidence that I didn't have 15 years ago. When I was, 5 years into my job. Their level of confidence is, I would say, 50 times higher than me, because I'm giving them everything that I didn't get. And so now they're natural salespeople, because the one best advice I got from my country, from my market leader in the US, and she's a woman. And she said, Shatha, I only have one advice for you, which I got 40 years ago. So we're talking about 60 years ago in consulting. She was coached by her boss. So this is a 60-year-old advice, maybe even older, but it's minimum 60. She said that to be a good consultant, you need to go meet with the client, and you should come back with at least 3 opportunities. If you've not identified at least 3 problems or 3 opportunities, then you need to reflect on what would make me a better consultant. We're not saying that it has to become, it doesn't have to convert into a sales, but at least identify 3 problems. So I passed that to my team, and I was very impressed by the younger people. So the younger people who started fishing for information, and they'll come back to me and say, by the way, they're planning to do this. By the way, they're having struggled with this. By the way, they don't have money, but this is their problem, So I found, these little small gems of advice or wisdom that I've received from my previous bosses. I pass it on to them.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what I'm learning here is that you led with vulnerability first. You're absolutely 100%. Transparent. You provide opportunity to people. You're invested in their growth, right?
100%.
And you give them structures, frameworks where they can come out and be themselves.
See, I always tell people this: if to know how well invested you are in yourself is correlated to how well invested are you in your people. It's that plain and simple.
Exactly.
And I honestly, my time is literally split 50-50. Although at my level, it should be more with the market and more with the clients, but literally 50% is like therapy sessions, talking sessions with my team throughout the week. And when I go to see my team, I don't take my laptop, it's down, my phone is switched off. I'm just having conversations with the team.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now tell me, Shatha, you're doing so much. How do you take care of yourself?
Good question. So, we all go through these waves of overworking, and then something happens, you crash, you get sick and all. So I've had a couple of incidents that I think served a good purpose. One of the first incidents, I was misdiagnosed actually with cancer, and it was going on for like 3 months. But that helped me reflect a lot. I wasn't reflecting while it was happening. I remember even when I had my biopsy done, I couldn't move. It was done on my neck. And I told my mother, please bring the laptop to the bed. And we were overseas. And she said, what is wrong with you? Like I said, no, I need to respond to certain emails the clients are expecting from me, to hear back from me. She's like, you need to recover. We need to know what's going on. You'll be going on a long-term treatment. You can't be like this. You're going to get more sick. You're adding stress and all. I ignored all that. But anyways, I had a moment, I think my mother's prayers definitely were answered. At the end of the journey of going back and forth with examinations, they said, we don't know what she's reacting to, but there is her body's reacting to something which looks like cancer, but it's not cancer. So, even if you go through the PET scan, they said 95% she has cancer, but we need to figure out what this is. And I think I went out one day with my mom and I was reflecting and I said, I think this is a message my body's giving to me and saying, this is enough. It can look really bad and you need to reflect, take a step back and all. And I'm not ashamed to say that we women are not good at delegation. So my journey of delegation was exercised after that. I think partly because we're perfectionists. I was too into reading every line item on a sales pitch. Everything was just just overdid it in everything, telling the team exactly how they need to behave when we go to the client, to the point I would tell them, how to handshake, how to look, into the eye of the client. I was a bit too much, I think, and the delegation was a big challenge for me. So with that experience, I definitely said, okay, I need to figure out how to delegate. Now, of course, we go through the waves again. And I saw the delegation initially is very painful because you have to be patient. You have to allow them to make mistakes. You have to allow them to ask you silly questions. You have to go through that. And I always tell anyone, people who are not familiar with delegation, be prepared to go through that. It's a growing pain, but you'll be so happy on the long term. And I can say this about myself. I'm very happy. I always tell the chairman that if anything happens to me, don't worry. This practice is self-sufficient. The people are great. Yes, they like to rely on me. They like to believe that I'm around. But frankly speaking, they don't need me. They can manage this business without me. And I think that gives me a lot of comfort and relief that when the going gets tough, then we're good. Because just a few months ago, I had an emergency surgery and I've never felt so at peace. I just told them that I can't read my emails. The first time I decided I'm not going to look at my emails. And it was very peaceful, I must say. And I said, okay, now I understand the level of stress I put myself under. And I just need to sit back and relax. And the team actually did a great job. Even those who are not so good at emails, they had my back. And they said, Shatha, I think the last 4 days I learned a lot about, staying on top of emails because we know how you feel about, being responsive to clients. So I think it's good to have these conversations with people. I mean, usually I would never want anyone to crash. At least with my team, I can see some who are just heading towards a crash, or they're starting to get snappy, they're starting to get edgy, they look tired. When I ask them, how are you doing? Instead of saying, fine, I'm alive, and I'm like, no, there's something wrong. So actually, when they take time off, I tell them, I don't want to hear from you. Let's just pretend like you don't exist in this period. And I even tell my team, please respect anybody who goes on leave, whether it's for half a day or for a month. I don't care what happens. We need to learn how to be self-sufficient. And, we're not losing a leg or an arm if somebody has to go on leave.
Very nice. Very nice. I'm curious about a couple of more things. And thank you so much, Shatha. I mean,
no problem.
This is going to be very helpful. When does Shatha decide that she needs to move up?
When do I decide that?
Or how do you decide this? Because she's already at a leadership level. There is more that's possible for Shatha, right? How does she take that decision?
See, I think to a great extent, my mother planted a seed in me in my first year. And she told me, what's your ultimate dream? What do you want to become? And, obviously I just got out of college. I'm like, I don't want to be unreasonable, but, eventually become a manager. And she said, a manager at Andersen, is that your ultimate dream? I said, yeah. And she says, and how much do you want to earn? I said, maybe like $5,000 a month would be great, as an ultimate pay. And she told me, she's like, I'm sorry, you've got this all wrong. She said, listen, if you're going to join Andersen or any consulting firm, the minimum you should aim is to become a partner. This is how you'll grow. So when she planted that seed in my head, I don't know, I was on autopilot, to be honest with you. I was on autopilot and my focus was, I'm going to be a high performer year after year. And I'm going to, explore areas where I can draw my strengths into that job and excel at it, And honestly speaking, I was on autopilot all those years. Yes, I left and joined the industry for a couple of years, which again was an excellent experience to understand what it's like to be in the client's shoe, because I joined Shell for a couple of years and I said, okay, now I know what it's like to own a risk, because we advise clients on risks. I don't know what it's like to own a risk. And I think that's also a very good experience for me when I'm dealing with clients in sales. And I tell them, listen, I know what it's like. I used to deal with consultants and give them a hard time too. Why are you here? How are you going to add value? I know I was asking that. And I said, wow, I should have thought about this when I was also a consultant. So I have been blessed. And I say, this is why I say men are very simple creatures. It was men who took care of me and promoted me year after year. And everything I ever wanted, I think when you have belief in yourself and your fears are not playing into your mindset, it's amazing how many doors you open for yourself. And those doors, nobody can close them by the way. Nobody can close those doors on you if you are so focused and, sure that this is where I'm heading. And so I remember when I joined Shell and said, okay, I'm going back to consultancy because this is what I love doing. I miss the interaction with people. I miss the, nothing is routine. And I got bored of the routine work. I said, routine is nice if you want to be comfortable, but I'm not comfortable with routine work. And so I continued. So even now, I mean, with my position, I'm, the way we work is obviously, okay, you become a country leader, you might become a regional leader, but usually the country leaders is already a big responsibility that they don't necessarily transform into something else. Eventually they become advisors or subject matter experts to support the business, basically a post 60 or something. But prior to that, they give us interesting assignments to lead for the region. So for example, in the last year, I was assigned to, develop a proper internship program, to revamp it, to do a mentoring program. There was another one on social media strategy. So I did a lot of interesting stuff. So I felt like I have my internal clients, which are my, the board, the chairman, and the equity partners. So for me, I think, I don't want to say that I'm comfortable, but I am very comfortable with where I am today, but and they keep me on my toes by assigning interesting tasks and letting me lead that at the regional level.
Beautiful, very nice.
But this is what I love doing, Venkat. I don't know what to say. I just love solving problems for clients. If there's something in store for me, it will come along, but I'm comfortable.
Very nice. One last question for you, Shatha. And
sure.
How did you discover your purpose in life, Shatha?
It's a very big question. And I was just having this conversation a few weeks ago saying that, our objectives can always change. And actually, if I tell you what I believe my purpose is, it's nothing like what you would typically hear. So it's not, for me, it's helping my community. It's being somebody who is adding value in my day-to-day with whichever community I serve. For me, this is the most important thing, is that I am adding value. It's almost like a religion for me, to be honest with you. Just like, as Muslims, we pray 5 times a day. I have very strong work ethics in that space, saying that it's as simple as, and I think this surprised some people when they told me to come and do a presentation. And I said, listen, we need to be very clear what this presentation is about. I'm not about to come into a room and spend an hour wasting the time of 50 people, which is 50 hours of people's lives, to not add value. And so actually the whole organizers, they came to me and they said, okay, we need your help. We think we need your help now. How we're going to do this the right way. I told them, listen, I've organized events. I make sure that anybody who's speaking at my event is respecting the time of these 100 people in the room. And they need to, it's not only that it has to be fun, but I want them to walk out and reflect and say, oh, I learned something new, or there is something I can reflect on that will, serve the best interests of my company or of my people or of my practice or whatever. So I think for me, in short, is to have a positive impact on any community I serve, whether it's on the business side, whether it's on the charity side, whether it's on youth empowerment, even with the students and so on.
Very nice. And allow me to say that I will wish you well, Shatha.
No, thank you so much.
You're a wonderful person to speak to. I mean, you speak from your heart. You're very clear about the impact that you want to make. And it's amazing how much your maturity, your competence, your expertise has transformed what you're doing now. Right? And
yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And I owe this to everyone I've interacted with. To be honest, I thank everybody who helped me. I thank everybody who did not want to help me. And I even thank those who tried to harm me. I think it shaped me into who I am today. So I'm grateful to everybody.
Wonderful.